And we are rolling. And I am so excited to have you here. I love what you do. You've been doing it since 2007, if I have read correctly. And you were like one of the first people ever to bring video film critique to YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
It was
I'm here.
me and Red Letter Media. We were the first ones, as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And your name is Rob Ager, if I'm saying it correct, and you have over 350 YouTube subscriptions, which is mind-blowing to me. That's incredible.
Cheers, yeah. Well, that's across the channels, isn't it? I think some of those are people who are doubled up between the different channels, but yeah, it's the main channel, I think, is 254,000.
Yes, it is. And then can you tell me why you have the two? Is there what's the delineation between them?
Well, I first started a second channel because I did a Starship Troopers film study many years ago. This is way back in something like 2009, 2010. And somebody working in the copyright office of Sony took exception to that video and personally really disliked it because it raised some issues that they didn't want to deal with, which I found out further down the line as I contacted Sony to find out why they got my channel blocked. The video was split in 3 parts. All 3 parts got blocked. They wouldn't communicate with me, so I had to email them directly. And it turned out that they revealed to me one of their employees had took it on themselves to get the video blocked, and they unblocked it. So from that point, I decided I don't want to get my channel blocked again for some stupid reason. So I'll start a second one as a backup.
That's
so I
brilliant.
think that one's at about 100,000 subscribers now at the moment. So yeah, that's the little backup. And then
that's a heck of a backup channel.
Yeah. Well, I started splitting the videos. I put some of them on the main channel, some of them on the second channel, so that people would subscribe to both, and then started some other channels. I've got a gaming channel now, which is just a new one. That's a little baby channel. And I had another one called Ager, but I've took that offline at the moment because I don't want to be running 4 channels. I'm spreading myself too thin there. So yeah, I'll just stick with the 3 for now.
It's incredible. I didn't even know there was a third or a 4th, but I did get everything else in the description box. I came across you and was so excited. And it's funny because everyone, watches for their own purposes, right? And for me, what hit me that you said was not only that there's a lot of, mind control or different techniques used in film, but that even our own friends have mind control powers over us. And I thought that was such a fascinating offhand comment that you made. And but before we get into it, I would love for you just to tell people a little bit about your history and a little bit about, what's gone really viral on your channel and things like that.
Okay. So as a child, my dad was a psychiatric nurse, so he always had me reading psychology books and things like that from a very young age. He was introducing me to psychological concepts. He was talking to me about Freud and Jung and people like that when I was like 8, 9 years old. So I was getting a good little sort of sideline education on that as a kid, and that's what sparked all my interest in that stuff. I then became a painter. Sorry, hang on. My phone is now going off in the other room.
No worries. Take your time. Just love his stuff. I've been binging on it. And I was so honored that he said yes to coming on here today.
Hang on a minute.
No worries.
Believe this. Right, get this right. I set this phone to let me know when we were going to start this podcast.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's finally let me switch it off. It got stuck on notification mode because we started earlier. I had it set for later. Right, so that's off. It's going in the Faraday blocker. I'm a big fan of these things. You put them in and no signal can be received from anywhere. You can't be tracked where you're going or anything like that.
Yeah.
Get a Faraday blocker, everybody.
I wish I could get one for my whole body.
That was a convenient advertisement for the Faraday blocker, actually. So
there you go.
So where were we?
Okay, you
Yeah.
were just giving everybody the background just a little bit, and then we were going to go into your offhand comment about how
Oh
we
yeah.
have friends that mind control us.
So it was the yeah, my dad teaching me that stuff when I was a kid, and in terms of learning about mind control, I mean, I don't really use the term mind control. I think you've got that from the Will Spencer podcast interview that I did.
Yes.
He put the term mind control in the title of the video, but that's not a term that I use for reasons which I'll explain shortly. But my first sort of really educating experiences about so-called mind control, or the extreme influences that other people can have where they restrict your thinking, that was mainly in my teens, when I was in poverty-stricken parts of Liverpool, and the youth culture here was so rough.
Wow.
You either did drugs and stole cars and did all that stuff, or there was something wrong with you. You know, if you weren't that type of person, you could be like really socially ostracized. So I was kind of mixed up with that kind of community, and all the other teenage boys here, they were mixed up with it as well, because there was just mass unemployment here. Nobody had anything to do. There was no internet, no video games. So people had nothing to do but go out and get in trouble. And so I saw with my friends, I call them my friends, but a lot of them actually weren't my friends. I saw with them, and I experienced it directly, how the social peer pressures can force you into thinking a certain way, behaving a certain way, and can even drive you to like pretty severe criminal acts, and can even convince you that those acts are not only acceptable, but that they are admirable. You know, a lot of criminal types actually take pride in doing nasty things, which is weird. So I got to see a lot of that in my teens, and that sort of sparked in me, in combination with the psychology stuff my dad had been teaching me, that sparked in me a real interest in how our social circles or family or anybody else can manipulate us, influence our behavior, drive our belief systems, and more or less force us into being someone who we otherwise wouldn't want to be. So yeah, that was where that part came from. And I wasn't thinking about politics or the news media or anything like that at the time. I was just thinking about people in my daily life. And my life massively improved when I got away from that situation. I moved up to the other end of the city. I cut off a lot of friends, a lot of family, because I had family who were mixed up in those circles and stuff as well.
Oh, wow.
I cut off a lot of people. And this isn't to speak badly of them. They were caught up in bad situations themselves. They were being influenced just like I was. They were being restricted just like me. But we would all reinforce those bad thoughts and behaviors on each other. And I wanted out. So I got away. I think I was about 18 or 19 at the time. And I lived on my own for 2 years. And I didn't have any friends at the time. I just got rid of everybody and just kept my core family members as the people I was in contact with. And for that 2 years, I just rebuilt myself and started exploring all kinds of psychology stuff, self-help stuff, hypnosis, all that kind of stuff. Examined all my belief systems, restructured my thinking, dealt with a lot of my experiential traumas, fixed all that, and gradually started to build a decent life after that, and then populating my life with new people who had better attitudes, you know. So that was where all that came from. But at the same time, with the film studies, I had always been massively into film because my dad was into it. You know, a lot of these things, it's my dad's fault, you know. So yeah, he got me into not just watching films as a casual fun experience, but, you know, sort of examining the deeper sides of it and stuff like that. And so he sparked that in with me. And then I became an artist in my teens. I was doing graphic design. I worked in video games, doing animations and stuff like that. And eventually all of these things came together, the artistic stuff, the psychology stuff, the technical aspects of working in video games and film production and things like that. All these things just sort of merged together to create the YouTube channels that are run now. Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. Have you made any films yourself?
Fiction films, yeah. I made 3 short films. I think they were 25 minutes long was one of them. Another was 21 minutes long, and another was 35 minutes. And I made one feature film, which was something like 86 minutes.
Oh, wow.
These were all shot on really cheap camera equipment. I just wanted the experience.
Yep.
And here in Liverpool, we get the best and worst of people here in Liverpool. Because people are so sort of rebellious and free-spirited, and anyone tries to stamp their authority on you here in Liverpool, people tend to give them the middle finger, except people kind of mind control each other according to the local culture and the way that I say. So there's an irony with that going on there. And where was I going with that?
About doing the films.
Yeah. So I found that whenever I was making a film here in Liverpool, I'd just have to go and tell everybody, you know, I'm making a film, and everybody would be like, I want to be involved.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if I'm getting paid. I just want to be involved in a film shoot because people love movies, you know. And so that was very easy because I was able to get like voluntary cast and crews together. And casting is very easy because there's so many people out there who want to be film stars. Even if you're doing an unpaid short film, I found I would put out an ad for it in what was it? There was like a publication for actors where anybody who was making a film could put it and they could apply. And I would get a sack full of CVs and resumes, as you guys call them in America, of actors and actresses just for an unpaid part in like a 20-minute short film. So you were spoiled for choice. And these people were good. They would put the effort in, you know. So they would work for free, but they would get a movie under their belt, and then crew. Those people, some of them were experienced people I knew who'd been through the university system to learn film, and some of them were just local people who just happened to have a couple of useful skills. And so I got pretty good at organizing these groups of voluntary people to come and do a film shoot and have the film shoot actually get done, which is quite difficult when you're not paying people, because if you annoy them, they can just walk away off set anytime. So you have to be nice to people, but at the same time, you have to sort of mind control them so that they don't interfere with your film shoot and ruin it by getting drunk on set and things like that. You know, you get a lot of people who come to a film shoot where they've got other motives. You know? So learning a lot about group psychology with things like that as I was making the film. So that was all fun. Yeah, and I was trying to embed a lot of deep psychology into my own films.
Purposefully?
Yeah. Very, very consciously and purposefully. But at the same time, because I was shooting on really cheap equipment so that I would have total control, I wasn't going to ever be able to get these films released, distributed, because they were just shot on home video quality cameras, you know. And I just did the best I could technically with that. Yeah.
Wow. So I had done a children's film because I wanted to take one from the very beginning to the very end and not raise any money, and it had a really, you know, low budget, and I ended up getting it distributed, but they stole it from me.
How did they do that?
I don't know how they did it, other than she would send me bills for her going to, you know, different markets. You know, I had to go here to sell it. I had to go there to sell it. And then next thing I know, of course, I cast my daughter in it. And next thing I know, there's people from India and different places going, I saw your movie, to her on social media. And I was like, they did? How'd they see it? Wild. But I wanted to have the experience. This was really all it was about. But it is kind of a crazy industry, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the experience of making a film, even if the film turns out terrible, the experience of making it is worth having.
Yeah, I can't imagine adding that layer of trying to put psychological type testings or whatever you chose to do. I don't know, but it has that Kubrick style, you know, what's going in there. And so do you have favorite films that you feel had a lot of, you know, we could call it mind control, hypnosis, predictive programming, you know, whatever that is?
Okay. And are you talking in terms of movies where the filmmaker is trying to educate the audience or manipulate them?
Yes, more
Either
like
way.
swaying them. I mean, don't you think every film has an agenda? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, every person's got agendas, whether they
Right.
realize it or not, haven't we? You
Exactly.
have, I have, and we're not always, I don't think anybody's 100% conscious of all of their own agendas,
Mm-mm.
Well, one movie that springs to mind, which I think answers both, is Saving Private Ryan. This one is, you've seen the movie, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's incredibly well made technically. It took the representation of war and put it on screen in a technical and artistic way, where you got the rush and the adrenaline of the battlefield in a way that had never been done in movies before that. It was pretty amazing when it came out. I mean, going to watch that on the cinema was a hell of an experience. You felt like you were there. And, there was all sorts of little technicalities in how the cameras were handled and the grain on the film and stuff like that, which I won't bother going into that stuff. But the film was great as a straightforward educational piece of what it's like to actually be in a battlefield in a war. That was amazing. But at the same time, the film was very manipulative of the audience in other ways that have been overlooked. And I've talked about this in a few videos. And this really gets some people's backs up. But in Saving Private Ryan, there's some sort of I would call them propagandistic elements. Although the film may not have been funded for that purpose, it may have just been Spielberg himself who did this. But I read the original script for Saving Private Ryan, and it was very different to what was filmed. And the key element that was different was the character called Steamboat Willie, who is the Nazi German who they capture halfway through the film after a battle, and he begs, "Don't kill me," and all this, and he says, "Fuck Hitler," and all that, and they argue about whether they're going to kill him or let him go, and they let him go, and then it comes back at the end, and he is fighting for the enemy again, and so he gets executed by one of the men in a glorious moment. I killed the enemy. I had him captured. He had his hands up, but I executed him. I'm the big hero, In the original script, the Steamboat Willie character was much more sympathetic. He actually saves them at one point. The group are sort of hidden in some bushes at night, and there's Germans nearby, and there's SS officers in control of those Germans. And it's made very clear that the German soldiers are not the bad guys. It's the SS officers who are controlling them and disciplining them and mind controlling the soldiers, behavior controlling them. That is made quite clear in the script. And Steamboat Willie actually uses the fact that he speaks German and is German. He steps out of the bushes and I think he talks to one of the SS officers and persuades him to go away. Now, he could have just said, "They're in the bushes, kill them," but he didn't. So they actually end up letting him go, and he doesn't turn up at the end of the movie to kill the main character played by Tom Hanks, and he doesn't get executed. So that was in the original script, and then Spielberg takes over it and has it all redone. I don't know if he personally rescripted it, I can't remember, or somebody else helped him rescript it, but they basically turned the Steamboat Willie character into this totally demonized German soldier. But anybody who really does any research on World War II knows that the German infantry, just the regular soldiers, not the Nazi officers, the SS and stuff like that, the regular German soldiers, they were just caught up in a mind-controlled military context, like soldiers in any other country. And, there was punishments in place for them if they didn't do as they were told and stuff. And they were fed propaganda that they were the good guys and the other side were the bad guys. So, yeah, Saving Private Ryan film got rid of all that and went for the demonization of the enemy. But at the same time, I highly respect the film for lots of other reasons. So, you hit both marks with that film. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so interesting too, because you'll see different film critics having completely different opinions on things, which I like. I like hearing the spectrum of opinions and takes on things. What has been the biggest way that it's influenced, like being so aware of how a film operates and moving a story forward? How has that actually impacted your real life? Do you look at people's intentions different? Do you look for the stories behind the scenes and stuff like that?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say there were certain movies that I saw when I was a kid that made me grow up very fast. because my dad used to let me watch proper adult movies with adult themes when I was very young. I mean, I think I saw Taxi Driver when I was like maybe 10 or 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And that is a big education about, prostitution and poverty and anger-fueled violence from people who feel isolated and lonely. So many things that movie brings up. So I watched that at age 10, 11. I was like, okay, so that's how that part of the world works. And then there would be other movies that would have similar effects. So it's a funny thing about, there's an aspect of movies which I'm really fascinated with, which is sometimes there's an area of life that we have no personal experience with. It's like a blank zone in our mind. For example, war, going back to Saving Private Ryan. Most of us have never been in a battlefield. We don't know what it's like. It's one thing reading in a book what happened. It's another thing to see a movie where it shows people dying.
Right.
And all
That's
that
so
kind of thing.
true.
So with things like that, we often have movies as our primary source of experience for those events. Again, like serial killers as well. Most of us never ever come across a serial killer in our whole lives, but we've seen Silence of the Lambs and stuff like that. So we form our opinions based upon those movies. And because those movies are filling a gap in our experience, our lack of experience, because they're filling a gap, those movies can either highly educate us or they can highly mislead us.
Yes.
So, before Saving Private Ryan, if you watched war movies, people would get shot and they would usually just die instantly from a bullet in the chest and stuff. And that's not how it really works. So with something like that, it can make war seem less cruel, less barbaric, less physically painful than it actually is, Yeah.
And it could I could totally see where people would be like numbed to things because of it.
Yeah.
It's the same way kind of porn works. And so
Funnily enough, I was just going to say, pornography is an example.
Yeah.
Well done. You're on the same page there.
Yeah. Well, I am listening. And so misleading movies. Have you ever, like that example, but have you ever walked out of one and just went, my gosh, this is damaging rather than something beautiful?
Oh yeah, many times. I was trying to think. There's so many examples to go by. It's weird
I don't
because
even know how you keep them all in your head.
well, I was just about to say, I don't keep those all in my head. Those kinds of movies, I either switch them off half an hour in, or I just forget about them afterwards and never watch them again. I tend not to review them because I think, why should I draw attention to this stupid movie that's got all this propaganda and lies and stuff in it? By reviewing it, I'm actually doing the filmmakers a favor, even if I give it a bad review.
That's so true.
I mean, we have this thing today where, some movie will come out and everyone knows it's going to be garbage. Oh, they're remaking this, and it's going to be trash, and everyone knows, and nobody's expecting it to be better. And yet they all still go and see it anyway, so that they can argue over it later. It's like the movie becomes a social event and the actual quality of the movie doesn't matter. So I don't want to contribute to that garbage. To me, those movies should just be ignored and forgotten. In fact, I'd really like it if film critics only reviewed good movies so that only the good ones got attention.
That's a great philosophy. I like that. And so what are some of your favorite films? And not just your favorites, actually ones that have a distinct message that you think are maybe progressive and good for humans. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, let's think
I'm
offhand.
challenging you.
Yeah. Right. Trying to think of the ones that most influenced me. American Beauty had a very strong impact on me when that came out.
I haven't seen that in so long.
Something I really liked about that film, this is incredibly unusual in cinema, but I actually did a video on this, which is one of the ones that I just sell on my site. Not everything's on YouTube because I have to earn a living. But I did a long video on the character Ricky Fitz, who is the young fella in that film, who's the sort of sideline drug dealer, but he just sells some pot, but he is like a Buddhist, he's got this meditative, calm philosophy, and it totally goes against all of the the usual pretentious attitudes that teenagers are taught to have. Oh, does my hair look nice? You know, am I more popular than this person? All this kind of stuff. And this guy in this movie, this teenager, he totally went against all of that in a way that I've not seen in any other movie. I'd like to see more movies that have teen characters who go against, because I mean, a lot of the teen stuff is like, actually, a good term for it. This isn't my own term. This comes from the heavy metal band called Anthrax. They did a song called Packaged Rebellion. And that's what a lot of teen stuff is. You know, the teens get told in order to be acceptable, you have to rebel in this way, you know, which is an irony, isn't it? You know, you're rebelling in order to conform, which is just weird. And so you get people who are persuaded, not just as teenagers, actually, but as adults as well. You know, if you don't rebel in this way, then you are going to be a social outcast. It's like, hang on, why don't I just rebel against that? But most people don't do that. So yeah, I would like to see more characters like Ricky Fitz in movies. Yeah.
I love that answer. That was awesome. And now I'm going to go back and watch it so that I can see it because I really don't remember very much about that movie because I saw it so long ago. When I was asking you about mind control in movies, you sent me a clip of The Master. And so I would love to hear like your thoughts behind that and why you chose that one. And then I'll tell you my experience of watching. I actually watched the movie.
Okay. You hadn't seen it before?
No,
okay.
I hadn't even heard of it.
Right. So you know the scene I'm referring to, which is the processing scene.
Yes.
So you've got I'm trying to remember the two actors' names. So we got Joaquin
Phoenix and gosh.
The other guy is a brilliant actor.
Yes, and he passed.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes.
That's
Good
him,
job.
Amazing actor. So yeah, he is basically playing L. Ron Hubbard, the Scientology guy in that film. And if you ever go and read up about L. Ron Hubbard, his life is just incredible. That guy was off the wall. You know, he was incredibly talented, incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly skilled, but at the same time, a complete lunatic in other ways, to the point where he started this whole Scientology movement. I'm sure you've read, there's a lot of crazy things goes on with that. So yeah, he's playing the role of L. Ron Hubbard. And in that scene where he is doing the processing, which, you know, basically therapy with the Joaquin Phoenix's character, I like that scene because, well, for one thing, the movie could have just demonized L. Ron Hubbard and said, oh, he's just a complete scumbag. But for that one scene, they actually showed this guy did have some serious communication talent. And if you read about him, he did study hypnosis and learn how to use it, and he was good at it. Part of why he was able to become this big leader of this group of people. So they showed the really good, useful side of him in that scene. And I like that because that made me think about what good could this guy have done in the world if he hadn't gone down this other, more manic path. He could have been a much bigger contributor to the world, in my opinion. You know? But also that's one of the very, very few sort of hypnotherapy scenes that I've ever seen in a movie anywhere that is even remotely realistic. Most of the examples that I've seen usually involve, here's a watch swinging. Oh, yeah. Pay attention to the watch. Sleep. And that's it. The whole idea, there's so much public misconception of hypnosis in itself, for all kinds of reasons. But the general perception seems to be like you either wave a watch, or you just keep saying to somebody, sleep, and you say it in a sort of a falling asleep voice, and somehow that gets people to go into a trance, and then you mind control them. You know, that's not how hypnosis works at all. If you've ever done it, I mean, I used to go to hypnosis practice groups. I learned how to do trance inductions, and there's loads of different ways of doing trance inductions. You can do it without ever mentioning the word sleep. You can do it without ever mentioning the word hypnosis. And in that scene in The Master, He calls it processing. And
Mm-hmm.
he uses some really powerful tools in that scene to influence this guy, but in a good way. You know, he does actually help him in the scene. And you know, one of the great things he does is he tells his subject, "You're not allowed to blink. If you blink, we go back to the start of the conversation." And so the guys immediately, that puts the guy's conscious attention on his
Somewhere
eye.
else. Yes.
And so therefore he's having to answer the questions, and the answers are coming more from the unconscious, because his conscious mind is on his eyes, you know. So that's one way that you can get people into a trance. I mean, generally, if you're going to do a trance induction, you need to give the conscious mind somewhere to go, to be preoccupied with something else while you do all the other stuff. So there was loads and loads of stuff in that scene where there was little body language and verbal clues that the subject was giving, that were giving unconscious answers. Like there's moments where he would ask the subject a question, and the subject would say no, but he'd do that. He'd go no. So which answer do you go with? Do you go with the verbal, or do you go with the non-verbal? You go with the head nodding. That's the non-verbal one. So he knows that the answer is actually yes. So there's little moments of that in it. So those kinds of subtleties are what really go on with real hypnosis situations. And I think that's the only film I've ever seen that really gets into the nitty-gritty of it. I think it was Paul Thomas Anderson made the film. He must have really researched on hypnosis and specifically the techniques used by L. Ron Hubbard in order to have that scene done so realistically. But from what I've seen elsewhere, when filmmakers have scenes to do with hypnosis, the filmmakers virtually never go and actually learn about how hypnosis actually works. At the same time, there's also an issue that if you do real, very, very convincing hypnosis in a movie, you're running the risk that you're going to put half of your audience into a trance as well.
Oh, really? That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
I mean, one way that you can sort of get people into a mild trance, like if you're doing hypnosis yourself, is you can describe another experience of putting somebody into a trance, or you could describe an experience you had where somebody put you into trance.
Yes.
And if you describe it in enough sensory detail, and you slow your voice down with it, and you do some other non-verbal things, the person listening to the story can drop into trance, you know. So there's all kinds of tricks like that can be used. But yeah, I can't think of any other movie besides The Master that has got such a realistic hypnosis scene.
Yeah, the thing that I think would be hard, and I am like a child when it comes to the movies that I'll watch. I don't like gratuitous violence. I don't like gratuitous sex. I don't like watching it. I feel strange watching it. So I don't know how you guys do it, because you're forced to like watch all of these different films, and it would be very difficult. But if you were to take out kind of the weird stuff that they start out with in that film, with how he's behaving on the beach with the guys in the Navy, and obviously losing his mind. He was very damaged from the war. So you understand, and that does add a layer of, okay, it softens it a bit, because it is, for me, it was really intense to watch. I almost like just turned it off, but I was like, no, I really want to see where it goes with this. And the rest of the film was really wonderful. I thought it was great. Do you ever get in that same situation where you're like, why did they add that, you know?
So you're saying that at the start of the Master film, there was some gratuitous stuff that really put you off?
I just thought it was unnecessary. Like I think you can show that somebody is out of their regular mind without being so sexual, and, you know, having him.
I'm trying to remember the scene specifically. I do remember there's a scene where they made like
the mermaid or whatever, and he was like pretending like he was having sex with her.
Yeah, but
then after that,
made out of sand on the beach.
Yeah, and after that, he went and like did like his thing over by the ocean or whatever. It was I don't know. And so I was just curious, like how you deal with that, or if you just look at the film overall and you don't really think about that kind of stuff.
Well, to me, those scenes weren't shocking at all, because because I've seen much, much worse in life and on screen. You know, I mean, I've seen stuff in real life that is just way, way worse than anything you see in that movie. So I was actually struggling when you said that there was difficult
Yeah,
scenes.
you're like, where was
I
it?
was struggling to remember which ones, because to me that stuff was very tame. You know, I used to work in the homeless hostels here in Liverpool with all the drunks and drug addicts,
Right.
and there would be, I don't know if I want to describe this stuff, but I'll give a milder example. Sometimes there would be a drunk who needed a drink, and another one would basically say, "Yeah, I'll give you a bottle if you give me oral sex."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
much, much worse things than that I've come
Yeah,
across
I
in
believe
movies.
you. I believe you.
So yeah, coming across those things in real life, where um, I'm not saying that I approve of gratuitousness on screen. I generally don't. I mean, you watch the Will Spencer podcast where he was talking about I think the movies are going too far with a lot of the gratuitousness. And funny enough, since I was on that podcast with Will, I've been writing a new chapter for my book about how the history of violence on screen just keeps getting worse and worse. And I've gone right back and I've been exploring the very early days of cinema, you know, when it was silent movies and the very first death in a movie where there was a
Oh,
death on
wow.
screen. The first murder on screen was in a black and white movie. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was in 1905, and somebody got beheaded, and they used a special effects trick, which was basically you see the sword swipe down, and then they just cut, and then they remove the person and replace them with a dummy, and everybody else who's standing in the scene just stays still and then
Right.
continue filming and see the head fall off. So that was the very first example. And then you go through the history of cinema, and like when Frankenstein came out in 1936 or something like that, I think it was the 1930s, people were horrified at some of the scenes in Frankenstein. And it wasn't just critics, it was audiences were really upset. Like there was a scene where Frankenstein is playing with a little girl and throws her in the lake for fun. You know, he doesn't realize he's going to kill her, but she drowns. And then he carries the dead body out the water, and audiences just couldn't deal with it. You know, today that's like whatever, you know. And as you go through the history of cinema up to the current day, there's just this ongoing escalation of the brutality on screen. And I think it's reached a point now where we should not push it any further. If anything, maybe even roll it back a little bit. One of my favorite movies from the last 20 years is Snowtown from 2012. That's about the Australian serial killer, John Bunting, who, funnily enough, in terms of mind control, he's a good example. He persuaded a bunch of people to go out and torture and murder some other people
Wow.
because the victims were supposedly pedophiles. And they did start off killing pedophiles, but then John Bunting thought everybody was anybody he didn't like, oh, this person's a pedophile, and the most flimsy of evidence would be used, and they would kill that person. And then it was like, we'll kill somebody else because they're a yuppie or because they're gay or whatever. You know, it just became an
Wow.
excuse. You know, so that's a really powerful movie from 2012. But if you found the Master scenes disturbing earlier on, then
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't watch that one.
do not watch Snowtown. It's probably the most disturbing film I've ever seen, but it's a great film because it shows how people can be manipulated into committing the most horrific acts imaginable and actually believe that they're doing a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I
Just
do think that, I mean, think about any war. I mean, to me, any war, people have been completely sold on. You know, it's just not normal to want to hurt people.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, even people you don't really appreciate their culture or whatever. I mean, to me, I think it's very strange. But you know, you said something earlier that I thought was so profound, and it was about the master and how he distracted him with a certain thought of keeping the eyes open. And it made me think of narcissism and how, in particular in relationships of any kind, how a narcissist will love bomb somebody and then that it becomes their distraction, and then the other person starts fantasizing about, you know, how incredible this person is, we get along so great. When you watch Snowtown, does he somehow like distract the people in order, I mean, I don't even understand how somebody would go after even pedophiles if that were the case, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So you're basically asking how he mind controlled them. Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious if they showed that in the movie, or if you know,
Yeah,
recognize.
yeah. They show in a lot of detail how he manipulates these people into these acts. Um, I mean, he started off by there really were pedophiles in this community, a lot of them.
Okay.
It was a community that was just like full of them for some reason. Well, it's not for some reasons, because there was a lot of poverty there that went on for generations, and everybody was unemployed. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? But for some reason, pedophilia had become rife in this community, and it was getting passed on generation to generation. You know, the kids would get abused, they grow up to become abusers because they think that's how it's all done, that's how life is, and that had just been going on for generations. And so he goes in there, and anybody who had been victimized by these people, anybody whose kids had been abused, he would get them and say, look, I'm going to help you do something about this. The police aren't help,
Oh, so
you know,
they had personally been impacted.
yeah, the police aren't helping and so on. So I'm going to help you. And they would be like, wow, this guy's going to actually save our kids. So you can understand the appeal of that. And he was very persuasive, very intelligent. And yeah, he would give them positive feedback. If they joined him on his crusade, he would make them proud. You stood up and did something. You fought back. But I could understand if that was the case, if they'd just gone and just executed these guys with a single bullet to the head. But to kidnap them and brutally kill them over a period of 12 hours slowly, that's not necessary for that kind
Right.
of,
Right.
that doesn't protect your kids. You
No.
just, you know, not that I'm approving of vigilantism where you just shoot someone in the head either.
Yeah.
But that I would more understand. But yeah, he managed to persuade them that that was a good thing, that you should take these people who've victimized you and your family, and you should put them through an equivalent amount of pain, you
Yeah.
know, revenge. You know, he was big on that stuff. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of those people in that community who were involved in what he was doing, I think a lot of them just became afraid of him as well, and they sort of conformed to what his gang was
They were
doing, because
groomed probably. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like the thought that they might turn around to him and say, "Oh no, I don't want to be involved in this anymore." But what if he targets me? What if I'm the next victim? You know, so that became a sort of social pressure thing. There's a lot of complex stuff went on there, and the movie goes into that. But yeah, just they show one scene later in the film where they show what they do to the victims, and it's only a fraction of what was actually done in real life. But even what they do show on screen is so realistic. Everybody I've seen the movie with has found it really traumatic, and wants to turn the scene off. You know, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't I couldn't watch that.
No, don't watch it.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I'm like, my kids make fun of me because 'cause I'm like, "What PG-13 movie can we watch?" And so, evil seeping in, it's kind of like you were just saying about how there's this trend, and it's not a fad, it's a trend of more and more violence, right? And then there's this more and more evil. Um, is there a particular movie that shows from the beginning, like this really nice person who slowly and very slowly takes somebody down with them, like truly evil seeping in without them being aware? Because that sounds like it would have been more obvious in that movie.
Yeah, I was going to say I can't think of a better example of it than the
Oh,
Snowtown movie.
okay.
You know,
Okay.
because these people are not inclined to be serial killers at the start of the movie at all. If anything, they're quite sheepish victims who just accept what's going on, and by the end of the movie, they're serial killers.
Wow.
um, yeah, I can't. There's probably other movie examples, but I can't think of any that are a better example than that film. Yeah.
And you've been doing this long enough to kind of watch how it's turned and become, anything over time, it evolves and it has more cooperative components. Do you really look at us as humans and go, wow, when we were making black and white films, we were a different kind of human. We weren't as educated. We didn't have as much data. Like, do you actually see the evolution of people?
Evolution or devolution of people.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
that is true too. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think cinema's got a huge role in both the evolution and devolution of people. Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, where there are gaps in experience that books just can't fill when you read the words on the page, but when you see it in the movie, you get something more from it. You might not be able to understand it in a way where you can verbalize it, but you've got an experience, a simulated experience, which can be very, very good. So yeah, I think a lot of us, we've got this sort of worldly awareness that partially comes from the news media and all of the news footage that we see of things. But I think movies play just as big a role in shaping our perceptions of how the globe works, the entire human race operates, and what it's like to live in India or China or Mexico or wherever. We've all seen movies that show things in these different places that we otherwise would never have any concept of. And at the same time, the movies are pushing all these narratives on us. I'm not saying anything originally, and a lot of people know this, but the movies are pushing a lot of false narratives on us, either deliberately or because the filmmakers just don't know any better and think that they're doing something realistic and they're not. Like with the hypnosis stuff, I don't think any filmmaker ever comes along and says, I'm going to make a hypnosis scene that misrepresents hypnosis. They just haven't done the research on it, so they end up making something that's silly. And I think that happens with a lot of things in movies. There's a lot of perceptions of people and the world that are flat out wrong.
Right.
Yeah, they're just not true. But it's not always that it's been done by design. It's just because some filmmakers got the wrong idea, put it into a movie.
I agree.
Other filmmakers saw that movie and thought, oh, that's how that works. And then they put similar scenes in their movies, and then it just cascades on and on. Like I was saying, like with the war movies, someone gets shot in the torso, or a Western or some action film or something. You get shot in the torso, you die instantly, just flop to the ground.
Right.
Hardly ever happens in real life. And even if you hit someone in the heart, they can still get up and walk around for a few seconds afterwards, dazed, like, oh, and then collapse. In fact, we did see that with that young lad who shot somebody in self-defense. I can't remember his name. Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see the video footage that he shoots the guy in the heart. The guy actually walks around a little bit before he hits the ground. So even with a shot in the heart, you don't die instantly.
Right.
But I don't think all the filmmakers ever got together and said, let's pretend that people being shot in movies is just instant death. It was just like something that got misrepresented, and then the misrepresentation carried on from one film to the next.
Yeah, and you can imagine little boys playing with their, like, and it's just a little boy that grew up that's playing with his actors. It's kind of funny. Yeah. What about the opposite? A slippery slope to inspiration, or even a fast route? Like, have you ever walked out of a film and gone, they totally changed my mind about this, but it is wonderful. Like, I feel great.
Yeah, lots of times. One movie that I love in that respect, and a lot of people say they find this film boring, is The Remains of the Day with Anthony Hopkins. Have you ever seen that one?
I have not. So I will see that, though. I love Anthony Hopkins.
Well, he made Silence of the Lambs, and then I think it was shortly after he made that film that he did The Remains of the Day, and he basically played the character who was completely the opposite, unlike Hannibal Lecter. Anthony Hopkins plays a butler who works for a very rich English guy in a mansion here in Britain, and it's just before World War II. I think that's when it's set. Yeah, so 1930s. Yeah, and he's the butler, and he is so mind controlled. I keep putting it in quotes because I don't actually believe that a person can be mind controlled. we need to come back to that, by the way. So make a
Okay,
note.
I will.
The definitions of programming and mind control, we need to discuss that. Okay. So, yeah, remains of the day, Anthony Hopkins plays a butler who is so mind controlled that he can't do anything other than just be a butler. And he lives to just be a butler. And like the politics of the guy who employs him, this super rich guy who's got all these connections to rich people in Germany and across Britain. This guy is involved with the Nazis, and there are actually Nazis who are coming to his mansion to have discussions about economic issues and so on. This is just before the war breaks out. And the butler is exposed to some of these situations where his own master is in danger of becoming too sympathetic to the Nazis. And the butler doesn't get involved in it. He has opportunities to actually influence his own employer, because the employer actually has great trust in him. He has opportunities to actually influence his own employer to move away from these Nazi guys. And he doesn't. He has all these opportunities and he doesn't take them up. And there's a woman who becomes the new head mistress, maid of the house. You have the head butler, which is Anthony Hopkins,
Right.
and you have like
The head housekeeper or something.
I don't know what she's called, the head maid or something, and she's in charge of all the female staff. And she comes and works in the mansion, and she is in love with Anthony Hopkins' character. And she basically wants him to leave his job and go and live with her and live happily ever after and have kids and live a real life. But he can't even admit that he's got any attraction to her. He's so repressed. Wow. And she keeps flirting with him and dropping hints. And there's scenes where she's crying her eyes out because he's not responding. And he'll just go to her and say, oh, there's some dust on the stairs that needs cleaning. You need to attend. And she's crying in tears and stuff, you know. It's amazing. If you want to study human repression and self-mind control, where people are in total denial, that is the movie. I mean, I saw that movie and I was like, I already knew that I don't like denial and I try to avoid denial as much as possible. But that movie reinforced it to a level that I don't think any other movie did. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't have a nice, happy ending, but it does make you stop and go, hang on. Am I restricting myself with denial? Am I avoiding opportunities that I should otherwise consider? Yeah, so I love that film.
Wow, I'm gonna. I really
one more thing. Christopher Reeve is in it. You know, Superman. Because I love Superman for the positivity, but I already talked about that with Will. You remember that?
Yeah.
He's so polite and nice to everyone. The opposite of all these angry superheroes. Christopher Reeve plays an American senator in Remains of the Day, who is trying to stop the Nazi influence upon this rich guy. And, he's fantastic. It's a great little role from him. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so I'm supposed to remind you about how we can't be mind controlled.
Right. Okay. The terminology to do with whether humans can be programmed or mind controlled. First of all, I just want to talk about the issue of programmed. As far as I'm concerned, people cannot be programmed. They can be conditioned.
Yeah.
And the difference is basically that with a computer, you design a program, you code a program, you install it and you run it. And every time you run that program, it's going to run exactly the same. Unless the computer hardware has gone wrong. If the hardware is okay, that program is going to run pretty much the same every time that you run it. At no point is the computer ever going to say, oh, I'm bored of this. It's not going to say, I'm starting to recognize the patterns of this program and I don't like it, so I'm going to do something else. Whereas with conditioning, people are sort of pushed towards a point where they have a high likelihood of taking a certain choice, but it's not guaranteed. I had a really good experience yesterday that reinforced this, and I thought, oh, that ties in great with what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I went with my family to the Southport Flower Show here in Liverpool. They have all these fancy artistic flower displays, and it's been running for 100 years, this show.
Wow, how
Last year
beautiful.
was the 100th anniversary. So we went down there, and sometimes they have like people doing like horse shows and things like that. And this guy was doing falconry, eagles and
Oh, I
owls
love
and things
those.
like that. So a big crowd around, and it was really surprising because I'd never seen a falconry show before. And so he's coming out and he's got like this, like a kestrel and these other birds. And he's like, he just lets the bird go and it's flying around, it's landing in the nearby trees and on top of people's houses. And yet it always comes back. It doesn't just go away for good. And I was like, wow, that's some impressive training there. But of course, he's using these bits of food that, the bird knows that if it comes back, it gets the food. And as he was doing the show, sometimes the birds would do what they had been trained or conditioned to do. And
Mhm.
sometimes the birds would decide to do something else. Like one of them, it just went and landed on this roof that was like 200 yards away or something. And all the audience are staring at this little kestrel on top of the roof. And he's like, that coming, he's got like a megaphone and he's like, come and get it. I've got the chicken here. And the bird has got really good eyesight and it can see the chicken in his hand. And occasionally it would come back, swipe down and just grab the chicken really accurately, just a little piece of chicken out of his hand, just swipe down and grab it accurately. But other times it would just sit there on the roof and be like, no, I'm not doing any more performing now. And the guy was explaining to us that he has to keep changing his training techniques because
They figure it out.
yeah, he trains the birds in a certain way and the birds notice the patterns and go, I'm not going to do that. If I just sit and wait and don't do what you say, I'll get the big prize at the end anyway, which is the meat or whatever. So he's in this constant battle with the birds, trying to outsmart them, and they figure him out. But a computer doesn't do that. So even with a much more simple animal like a kestrel, you can't just program it. It's got self-awareness. It notices patterns. It starts to realize its own role in the
Nature.
program. So that's why I say you can't program anybody. You can only condition them. And that's true with, I would say, pretty much all human behavior. I mean, there are like neurologically hardwired things like,
Yes.
say, if you burn your hand, apparently the pain signal doesn't even reach the brain. It just reaches like the elbow. And then there's an automated reflex that makes you pull your hand away super quick. Yeah. So you
Wow.
can't exercise conscious choice over that. So we've got basic things like that physically, but in terms of mental stuff, no, it's not reliable. You can't just reliably say, we are going to install a program in this person and they will never, ever be able to break away from it. You might be able to get them to do it for a while, but eventually they often break out. So yeah, it's conditioning, I think, is the better term.
Well, and it makes you
And
wonder too, because you look at the guy with the birds and it's like, is the bird training him or is he training the bird?
exactly, yeah, yeah. I mean, the bird was kind of like, okay, I'm going to manipulate the situation myself here to get
Right.
what I want. I'm going to make him wait, just like the trainer will make the bird wait to get the treat until it does something. He's like, no, I'm going to make you wait until you give me the treat. So it's and this kind of awareness of training and stuff that goes back thousands of years
Oh,
because
yeah.
humans have had pets since I bet there was cavemen who took like baby creatures of various kinds, just raised them in the clan. I bet they were training animals back then. They had no academic awareness. They hadn't seen Pavlov's papers about the training the dogs with the bell and stuff like
Right.
that, but they learned how to train animals and stuff. So human awareness of conditioning and training goes back all that far, but it's never 100% reliable. And that's why I say you cannot program somebody, because a program cannot be deviated from. With conditioning, they can get away from it. Yeah.
Right. But
And to that,
that's a really
so,
good
sorry,
thing to
to that
know.
effect, I think the term mind control, basically, it's the same deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah. You do see though that, like movies like the one with Mel Gibson, where they're massively mind controlling him. Have you ever seen that one? I think it's called Mind Control even or something
Is
like
that
that.
the one that's just called Conspiracy Theory?
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't actually seen it.
Okay.
I've heard some good things about it, but I've not seen it. Yeah.
Well, and you hear about these people that are making claims and who knows, there's so much false stuff out there. I always just kind of keep a spectrum, it's like, this is all the possibilities with this person. This is all the possibilities with that person. But
Yeah.
in that film, it talked about how, just one word or one thing would trigger him to do, their bidding, so to speak. And that's kind of the feeling I got from the L. Ron Hubbard film too, because there was a piece of it that I felt like he was controlling Joaquin Phoenix's character to fight for him, or to, do certain things for him that he didn't maybe want to do. Does that make sense? Did you get that at all?
I actually thought there was some slightly different things going on with that. That character, that Joaquin Phoenix's character, there's a scene where he goes and beats up a guy because he argued with L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
But L. Ron Hubbard didn't ask him to do that. I don't think he planned it, and he had chastises him for it afterwards. But Joaquin Phoenix's character just took it on himself to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a funny element with cults, is that it's not always just the person at the top who's running things. You get people who are within the ranks who lead it in other directions as well.
Right.
Like with Charles Manson, it's very questionable whether Charles Manson really ordered those murders of Sharon Tate and the rest of them, whether he specifically ordered it in the way that was claimed in court.
Right. Right.
Or whether what's his name? There was one of the guys was really violent. I think Watson.
Yeah.
Was it Watson?
I forgot his name, but yes, I remember seeing stuff like that.
I think it's Watson, and he was the super violent one. And so that might have been the case. Charles Manson might have said, "Go and do something crazy" or something, or he might have planted seeds. That there were certain results he wanted, but the actual level of violence.
That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like the seeds were planted, and even especially because he took his daughter's husband with him to beat that guy up. I just don't think that would work especially when you see the whole family having that, meeting about him specifically, and none of them really seemed to trust him except for L. Ron Hubbard. And so I thought that was kind of telling, but maybe I'm reading too much into it, and giving him too much power. I also think that when somebody has gone through what he supposedly went through and has PTSD, and I do think that the person who is trying to manipulate them, I think they kind of know what kind of firecracker or dynamite or, little tiny snap they have.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I don't know. But that's what's so great about movies, is they're so ambiguous, and like people can read into them different. I guess.
Yeah, well, that's kind of true of cult-like behavior anyway. It's funny because, like, even the term cult, the way I view it, society is just cults all the way up and down.
100%.
I mean, I've worked for companies where it was basically cult-like mentality.
Yes.
And so you get the people who are in the high positions, they can't dictate everything that everyone below them does. So they tend to hire people with certain tendencies. And then those people are sort of trusted to go out and do whatever is necessary. But those people take it upon themselves to do extra things that they weren't told to do. But also, I guess that kind of gives some plausible deniability from the person from the top, because they didn't actually give an order. And funny enough, the whole thing about conspiracy theories generally, I think there's often a misunderstanding with that, where a lot of people tend to think that there's these really detailed, specific, consciously, verbally decided agendas at the very top of some pyramid of power. And those specific orders just filter down the ranks and are just blindly followed completely, down to the last dot, But it's not really like that, because the people at the top can't control all the details. So they have to hire henchmen and stuff in the middle levels and trust them to do that work. And so you end up with what I call conspiracy by convenience, which is where there isn't always a specific plan, and the details aren't already all completely fleshed out. But there is often an unconscious agreement between people who share power within a certain organization. And when some new crisis event happens, the people at the top don't have to tell everybody how to respond. They've all got the same mentality anyway, so they all just automatically go in a certain direction, even if nobody consciously states it verbally anywhere.
Yeah.
And you see that with social groups as well. And I saw that in my teens with the guys I hung around with. Nobody ever sat down and wrote a document. We will all act exactly like this. There was nothing like that. But yet there was a rigid mind control that went on non-verbally between us all. And it was hard to even tell who was the leader of it all, to be honest. Yeah. So I think a lot of real world conspiracies operate like that. But you do get the planned stuff as well. The social engineers who are basically people who want to mind control people. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that's why a lot of people are attracted to spiritual information and religions and stuff, because it does kind of explain powers and principalities and how they can influence individuals as one, if that makes sense. And so that is something that I do believe can happen for sure. And an example of, I think, the innocent type would be something like healthcare, and all of the doctors being chosen have to pass certain tests, but they also have to be invited in based on how compliant they are and how much they like assembly line learning, and they like rote learning, because they're not tested the way an engineer is. An engineer is, here's all the books, here's the test, create something great. Whereas a doctor is like, they're almost like hazed through it, and so I do think there's a lot of that going on too. And so anything that you think, whether it be through your computers, your art, or your film, anything you think that the average person doesn't see that someone like you can see when you're watching a movie or assessing a piece of art or whatever?
Well, I actually made a lot of notes about this stuff today because I knew we were going to be discussing the
Well,
hypnosis.
go.
You'd sent me some emails. So,
Unleash yourself. I'll zip
well, I
my
don't necessarily need to refer to the notes because a lot of it's floating around in my head anyway.
Yeah.
But I think one of the specific things I wanted to talk about, which kind of answers your question, is I think most people have very little awareness of how their own unconscious mind works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, which is kind of makes sense in itself. Why would they understand it if it's unconscious? But you can learn about these things and learn to bridge the gaps so that you develop a good communication system between your conscious mind and your unconscious. And most people, I think this is kind of an example of how uneducated people are on this, is most people know next to nothing about hypnosis. And hypnosis is just such a powerful example of how the unconscious mind can be manipulated to achieve certain results. It can be positive as well. Hypnotherapy can be a fantastic thing. But most people have very little awareness of it and don't seem to even have an interest in it. I mean, they'll go and watch stage hypnosis. Oh, we made somebody eat an onion and they thought it was an apple. Ha, ha, ha. But I don't know why people don't follow that up and say, you know what? This is showing me things about the mind. I'm a human. I've got a mind. If these people on the stage can be made to do this, this, and this with these tricks, then I don't really know myself that well because I don't understand. So I think I need to go and learn about this stuff, about hypnosis. I don't understand how anybody could not take an interest in hypnosis, given how powerful the examples are in real life on stage and stuff. But it seems that a lot of people, this kind of ties into that. A lot of people don't want to know about their own unconscious because they're worried about what dark things will be there. They're worried that their conscious belief systems will suddenly lack credibility. People carry these conscious narratives that I'm a good person, basically a good person, and all the evils in the world are out there.
Right.
That person's evil, this one, but I'm basically good. And you can't have that if you're aware of all of the unconscious stuff. Once you delve into the unconscious, you realize, oh my God, all the dark stuff that I see out in the world, it's actually inside me as well, and I have to deal with it. And it can be an ego blow to realize that you're not an angel and stuff like that. So yeah, I think people's avoidance of understanding their own unconscious is a big problem.
I agree.
They don't get educated about all the ways that they unconsciously express evil intentions and do harm to other people
Fears.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And they just lie to themselves that they're always a good person and stuff like that. So I'm trying to remember what the question was that you asked there. I was sort of answering it.
Oh,
And
I was just asking if you see things differently because of all of your experience than probably the average person. But I think just that answer
yeah,
is it. I mean, that really is the inability for people to sit still, even without some sort of dopamine hit, is a huge problem worldwide. And sitting alone and quiet, and that's why I repeat this so often, but one of my favorite scenes ever in a movie is one that was supposed to be taken out. It's called No Man's Land in Wonder Woman. And anyone that has ever had that hermit stage that you have had has been in that bunker, and they knew that they had to cross no man's land by themselves. And that's obviously why it's called No Man's Land. And it's the wilderness. It's where we all, in my opinion, must go to begin to understand ourselves. And so that's kind of why I was asking that question.
right. Yeah. I haven't seen the Wonder Woman film that you're referring to. Is that a recent one or an older one?
It
Or
was 2010, I think.
yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that it's what you've just raised there is so important. I mean, so many people, when they describe that they've had a big spiritual revelation, it often involves them going away and being on their own for a while. I mean, I've had a number of times that's happened to me in my life, but one of them was in my late 20s. I went to work in the Isle of Man. I was working in some unit for troubled kids, and I was doing the night shifts there. Nobody else would do the night shifts because these kids would run riot in the building and just trash everything. And I worked there for 6 weeks doing the night shifts, and I didn't have any problems with these kids. The first night or two, they were going around trashing things, and I quickly realized they were only doing it to get me to chase them for fun. So then, so that was it. That's all it was. They weren't even bad kids at all. They were lovely kids, most of them. Well, all of them were. Yeah, I can't say I disliked any of them.
Right.
But yeah, after I realized this, it was the first night all that went on, and then the second night I was like, okay, I'm on to you guys here. And I said to them, okay, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to let you do your insane, crazy stuff. You go ahead. You want to trash this, whatever. Do whatever you want. And in the morning, I'll just write it all down for the day staff to deal with, and you can deal with the consequences. And they didn't do anything. They just went to the rooms and
They were like,
well,
there was no rebellion involved there.
It was weird because they behaved on all of my shifts for the whole 6 weeks. And I got on great with them. And, you know, I think they respected that I saw what they've been doing. They
I
go,
was
oh,
just going to say, witness is huge. People
yeah.
really just want to be seen.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I went off on a tangent there, but what I was going to say, for that 6 weeks, because these kids were so well behaved on the night shifts, and the day staff were being a bit suspicious of why are they behaving so well around Rob? What's going on? What's he doing to them? But on those night shifts, I took a lot of time to think about my life, and I was away from my home, you know, away from friends and family and stuff, and I changed all my values in that 6 weeks over these night shifts. I wrote my first film script while I was there and so on. And yeah, so that was a big change for me. I mean, that's an additional one that happened later down the line after the one I'd had when I was 19.
Hermit earlier,
I
yeah.
think it's good to have one of these every 10 years or so.
I agree. I cannot speak enough about, and I just call it radical self-care, but what I did to myself in 8 weeks was mind-blowing to me. What I did when I put my mind to it. And it was a perfect example of somebody that was victim, thought they were being controlled, you know, all this stuff. And then it's just a breaking out and realizing it basically exactly what you were saying, that it is us allowing it to happen rather than the opposite, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're not, when you do that, you isolate yourself, you're cutting off all the normal triggers, aren't you? The things that generally drive your behavior. And then you're free to just deal with your actual thoughts and emotions, everything that's coming from within. You're not being distracted by stuff on the outside. And it's surprising what you find in there. You find a lot of truth. You make a lot of decisions. But so many people hate being alone. It's almost like they don't want to be alone because, oh my God, the unconscious stuff might start bubbling
It
to the
does.
surface.
It totally bubbles up. It really does. But I think what you'll realize is that a lot of the stuff that you feared were your problems were actually the outside pressing in. And when you're alone, the outside's not pressing in as much. And so you do have a little bit more space to work with, you know, your psychological stuff. I love that we got off on a totally different tangent. But it is all about the mind ultimately. And it is movies are a wonderful way to reflect without actually going through the experience, which is what you were saying about war, which I think is great. Do you have any other things that you wanted to cover before we cut today's off?
Okay, let me just quickly go over the notes there.
Okay, yeah, because I really would love to hear what you have to say.
How are you restricted for time at the moment? Do you need to be off in 5 minutes, 10
Nope,
minutes, whatever?
I am good.
Okay.
I'm
Right.
loving
So
this.
let's see what we can find here. So yeah, okay. So one of them was that hypnosis happens a hell of a lot in life anyway, such as yoga and meditation and prayer. You know, these are all trance states in a way, and daydreaming. And so yeah, a lot of people fear hypnosis, as in like, oh my God, somebody's going to control me and put me into this state of mind that I've never been in before. But you've actually been in trance states many, many times in your life, and they're very useful and they can be very enjoyable. So yeah,
I
it doesn't need
remember
to be.
hearing, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
Go
thought
ahead.
you were looking down again. I remember hearing a long time ago that there was this guy on YouTube and he does hypnosis, and it was for sleep hypnosis. And I remember him saying, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And I think that's basically what you're saying in the overall arching thing is that we can't really be manipulated. It's more of participating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you actually get into doing hypnosis where it's official and you actually use the word hypnosis, you encounter all of these obstacles from people where they're like, I don't want to be hypnotized. Some people will just flat out say, no, you're not going to hypnotize me. I'm not going to do it. Other people will say, okay, let's give it a shot. But they won't let themselves go deep into a trance because they're worried about what they're going to reveal about themselves, and whether you're going to make them do something that they otherwise wouldn't want to do, or find out some secrets about themselves and things like that. So people have all these protective things in place, and you can't just put somebody in a trance and then just tell them to stab themselves or something. You know,
Right.
it doesn't work. There are still defense mechanisms that are in place within trance as well. And like one of the things I used to do when I was doing the hypnosis practice groups was sometimes I'd run groups and sometimes I'd just take part in them. And if I was trying to get somebody to go into a trance within the group, I would often start off by saying to them, look, I'm aware that you don't really know me very well. You don't know if you can trust me. Why the hell should you go into a deep trance with me here? You know, okay, so let's address that right now. And I'd say to them, okay, but before we go into the deep trance stuff, or we don't even have to go deep, you can choose how deep we go. But before we do that, I want you to go inside yourself and I want you to make the necessary unconscious arrangements that you will not reveal anything that you otherwise wouldn't want to reveal, that you won't do anything that you will otherwise wouldn't consciously want to do, and so on. Take the time, go inside yourself and make those arrangements, and then let me know when you're ready. And just that would chill people out so much. They wouldn't even have to spend long. Some of them spend like 5-10 seconds and then they
Right.
go, okay, I'm ready, you know. And other people, they might take longer, 30 seconds. I can't remember it ever taking more than a minute. Now, whether people were actually able to make those unconscious arrangements, I don't really know, but it would make them feel good enough that they were then willing to go along with. And you can overcome a lot of the resistance just with that. And why should you have that level of control over people? Why should you be able to bypass what would normally be the conscious defenses and so on? So that kind of stuff was really good. But a lot of hypnosis is generally sort of perceived as being, I'm going to control this person and
Right.
force them. They'll suddenly going to become a puppet where I pull the strings. But no, it's
Which
they
is
still
also what makes it attractive to some people.
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get a lot of people,
Very, very
it is,
insecure people that like to control
yeah,
everything.
it is true that a very skilled and experienced hypnotist can get people into a deep state and cause amnesia so that they don't realize what's happened while they're in the trance state. And one of the ways of doing that is, you have someone go really deep into trance state, and there's all kinds of little non-verbal clues that let you know that the person has gone really deep. Say, for
Sure.
example, if you ask a person who's in a deep trance state to raise the hand, they will raise their arm in a completely different way to how they would in a conscious state.
Oh, interesting.
So, like I lift my arm like that in a conscious state,
Mhm.
and I concentrate with the muscles up at the higher joints, and then the movement sort of starts there and moves outward. When someone's in a deep trance, for some reason, I don't know why it is, but it's like when a person wakes up from sleep in the morning, they will start by moving the finger on the wrist, and they will start at the outer edges, and
Yeah.
then gradually the movement shifts its way up to the
Yeah.
shoulder
Yeah.
and things like that. There's lots of little non-verbal things like that a person generally wouldn't be able to fake. They wouldn't know to fake it. And if
Right.
you get somebody into an incredibly deep state like that, it's a state that is so different to their normal state of mind that it's almost like a dream. When people
Yeah, I
have a
was just gonna
dream,
say it would be
yeah,
like being on ayahuasca or like being in a dream state. Yeah, it's just a different
absolutely.
wave state. Your
Yeah.
brain is in a different wave
Yeah,
state.
I do think when you put someone into a deep hypnotic trance, you're basically putting them in the same mental state as a dream.
Mhm.
And as we know, in dreams, all complex, weird things happen. And the people who are afraid of the unconscious don't like to explore their own dreams, by the way. Um, but what was I going to say about that? Yeah, like a person who wants to do bad things with somebody when they are in a deep state and have them do things they otherwise wouldn't want to do and have them not realize it afterwards. One way you can create the amnesia is to pull the person out of the trance state very quickly, like within seconds. Come on, up, 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 up. You can feel yourself coming back to, energy is flying over. And the person comes out of it so fast that they don't manage to create a conscious connection
For just
with the dream state. It's like if you wake up in the morning, you've been having a long dream. If you wake up slowly,
right.
it's like you can retain access to the dream state
Yep.
because that transition allows you to create the neurological connections between the dream experience and your conscious waking state. But if somebody wakes you out of a dream really fast, you tend not to remember the dream because there isn't a bridge created between the two states. So yeah, that's one way that people can cause amnesia and prevent people realizing what happened
Yeah,
in
it is.
the
I agree with you. I believe it is possible. Have you ever, because this has happened to me just in life in general. If I spend the day at Six Flags when I was younger, I would later, when I was going into kind of that more lucid, but starting to hit dream state, I would be in a roller coaster again. Have you ever done that with movies that have been so powerful that that night when you dreamt even if it wasn't the actual aspects of the dream of the movie, but pieces or the style or the theme? Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah, many times. Blair Witch Project did that to me. I'd heard for years, oh, it's a crap film, blah 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 blah. And then a good friend of mine who had very good taste said to me, no, watch Blair Witch Project. And so I thought, okay, it's found footage, shaky camera footage. I'll give it a watch just before going to bed. And I was like curiously interested in it. I wouldn't say I was amazed, but I was
Right.
like, this is unusual. I went to bed and I dreamt about that bloody witch coming at me in the bed, and I screamed. I actually sat up and screamed my way out of my sleep. I don't think I've ever done that before. I was
Oh
like,
my
okay,
god.
that was a good movie.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, see, yeah, I think there's certain things that stay with you, and that happens to me, and that's why I was curious if it happens to you. I'm just really lucky because maybe I wake up slow, or, whatever it was that you were saying, because I remember my dreams.
Yeah.
I had a very strange one last night where I had, like, this mechanical mermaid that was, like, 3 feet long, like, after me, and I had to, like, rebuke her by Christ or something to get rid of her, but it's just It is really funny, and I do appreciate so much you coming, and I could talk to you literally all day because I love talking about all of these subjects. It's so fun,
Yeah.
so fun. And so tell everybody where they can find you.
Collativelearning.com, COLLATIVE, Collative Learning. That's my website. There's lots of my articles and videos are all linked on there. Or there's the YouTube channel of the same name. That's the main channel. And the secondary channel is just called Rob Ager, AGER. And my third channel, which is my gaming channel, which is apparently unrelated to what we were talking about today, but actually does have crossovers. That one's just called Ager Games. So I've been going into...
I'll add that one, Ager Games. Okay.
Yeah. Because I bet there is hypnosis stuff used in some games as well, and I explore that on that channel. Yeah.
Oh, well, can you give us a little?
Yeah, Alien Isolation, the video game. It's one of the most hypnotic experiences you can ever have. The whole game is just full of subliminal stuff that manipulates your feelings and thoughts and stuff. It's amazing. So I've done some videos on that there as well.
Do you think that's why they're so addictive? I mean, and these kids just keep playing and playing.
Yeah. It's a funny one because I tend to have a particular game that I'm addicted to. There's always some game that I'm really into, and lately it's been Fortnite. All the kids play Fortnite, and basically it's you and like 99 other people, and you're dropped on an island, and you have to find weapons and kill each other and see who's the last man standing. It's amazing. I've gotten pretty good at it. I come first on the island usually about 1 out of 4 games. So.
Wow.
Yeah, there's lots of kind of hypnotic eye candy stuff and that in the game. I wouldn't say it's incredibly sophisticated, but it's got fantastic gameplay. Yeah, but there's a lot of games use hypnotic techniques, and well, it's everywhere. It's in advertising and stuff. And,
yeah,
you know, we could go on about that all day.
Yeah, no, I remember my former husband was talking to my son and saying, you cannot imagine how much more intellectual property of every kind is in that game than what you're telling me is in that game. And I thought that was a really good point. You know, there's a lot of people that go into making one of those and making it attractive, but then also making it addictive. You know, they're trying to do that. I mean, you know, anybody that has a business wants people to come back to the business, right?
Yeah.
So, and so you also mentioned that you're writing a book. Does that mean it's your second book, or is this your first book?
This is my first book.
Oh, exciting.
It's on the film analysis stuff, basically. Yeah, I'm still writing it. It's taken a long time to do, but I want it to be as good as possible. You know,
yeah.
I could just rush it out now with the chapters that I've got done, but I want to add a lot of new stuff in there that I've not previously made videos about. So I don't know when that's going to be done.
I love how you consciously try to like separate things out and not repeat yourself. And I think that's really cool, because a lot of times that's why I don't usually have people introduce themselves really long or ask a bunch of questions about their past, because I know they can find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I want to just get to the meat of it, you know?
Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't reward that, does it? YouTube tends to reward repeating yourself. The algorithm wants you to do the same video over and over and over.
I didn't even know that. See, I don't do this for a living. I do this for fun.
Yeah.
And I, you know, maybe do 1 or 2 videos tops a week. And so I don't really know all the rules, but I am amazed that people can make a business of it. And it's a lot of work just to do 1 a week. I can't imagine doing as many as so many people do, and then having to edit them, because I do everything live. I really admire what you do. Is there anything else that you'd like? Do you have courses? Do you have anything else that we should share with people?
Things to share. Well, if you want to go beyond basic sort of film studies and things like that, and you want to get into the really nitty gritty core aspects of psychology, the stuff that I practice anyway, there is a PDF book that I sell on my site called Collative Learning Systems. So on my site, if you go to the Insight page, you can get that. I think it's about maybe 150-page PDF book. And I actually wrote that book when I was about maybe 24 years old,
wow.
because I was taking all of the different stuff that I was studying, all of the different forms of psychology, the hypnosis and the Gestalt stuff, the NLP, all that kind of stuff. And I was finding things, testing them out. Does this work? Does that work? And I condensed it all and wrote the book for myself. And I never made any effort to publish it. Well, for one thing, I'm not an academic, so I thought, why would anyone else want to read it? But
I think those are the people we need to learn from the most.
Wow.
Actual hands-on experience.
Yeah. Well, I actually, it was about maybe 5 years ago. I went back to that old book that I'd written in my 20s, and I was like, I think I'll rewrite this.
Wow.
And publish it. And when I started reading through it, I thought, I don't really need to rewrite it because there's hardly anything in it that doesn't gel with what I still believe today.
Wow.
Well, I'll just leave that the way it is, you know. Maybe one day I'll expand it into some big thing. Yeah.
You might have your second book already written. You just have to refine it. And so, well, thank you very much for coming. It was an absolute joy to have you. I've been having fun watching your stuff. And it's funny because some of the stuff I'm like, I'm not ever watching that movie, but I love watching his breakdown on it.
Thanks, Carmen. Yeah, I've had people say, oh, I enjoy the studies of the films more than the movies themselves. I've had people say that, yeah.
I really do, especially like The Shining and what was the other one that you did that was a big one, a Kubrick film. What was it?
No, it's been a handful of them. 2001, Eyes Wide Shut, all the rest of them.
Eyes Wide Shut. That was the one. Yeah, I much prefer watching that than ever watching that movie.
You know, funnily enough, I actually don't really enjoy watching Eyes Wide Shut. Generally, I find it too slow. I prefer stuff like Full Metal Jacket and A Clockwork Orange because they're so funny and fast paced.
Yeah.
More brutal though.
It's so true. Well, thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend or week or whatever. I think it's Monday. Have a great week.
All right. You too, Carmen.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.